I first of all introduce myself? My name's John Laker. I'm the Secretary of Marlow Energy Group, and I'm doing some of the work for this event this evening. Can I welcome you all along? Hopefully this will be really interesting and informative talk by two experts in the field. Anybody who's come along late, can they mute, please, so we don't hear you eating your dinner or whatever you're doing? Right. The format of the meeting is that we're going to have a talk first from Brian with a video, Brian Jonson. I'll give you a quick rundown of Brian. He'll be talking about the End Plastic Soup initiative, which was started by Rotary clubs in Amsterdam in 2018. He's a member of Marlow Rotary Club and an ambassador for this initiative. Brian graduated in 1966 in film production in London, worked on various feature films and commercials, and went on to produce TV commercials and financial programs for his own production company, Maiden Films, from 1995 to 2004. He was also chair of Great Marlow Parish Council for several years. So if I can pass you over to Brian, Brian will be sharing the screen and presenting his film. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, John. Well, good evening all, and thank you for inviting me. It's very much appreciated. First of all, just a little bit about, End Plastic Soup, there has been an international campaign going for some years, longer than Rotary has been doing this. But I'll talk about a little bit in a moment about the formation from within Rotary. But for those of you who don't know about Rotary, Rotary is an organisation with 1.2 million members across the world. And we have a presence in virtually every country. And one of our biggest claims to fame is we're actually spearheading the End Polio campaign throughout the world, funded mainly by Bill and Melinda Gates, but organised in conjunction with the World Health Organization and various other bodies by Rotary. And Rotary has a whole series of different levels, but the levels that I tend to get involved in tend to be the campaigning ones. And sort of supplying various items of aid. But anyway, I became quite excited, as you'll hear in the video in a few moments, about End Plastic Soup, and I realized just how little I knew about the current situation with plastics in the world. So now, if for any reason it appears to be fuzzy, blurred, or the sound is wrong, give me a shout and I will correct it, but hopefully it will all work very well for us. And the sound at the beginning is quite noisy, it's meant to wake you up. So from the start, from the beginning, and here we go. I'm Brian Jonson. I'm past president of the Rotary Club of Marlow. I'm an AG for District 1090, and I'm also passionate about plastic and what we do with it. So I was absolutely delighted when the Rotary Clubs of Amsterdam asked me to be an ambassador for their End Plastic Soup campaign. Now, I've been aware, or I thought I was aware, of the issues of plastic pollution. I've seen the images of children scavenging the dumps and the sites in the Far East. I knew we were trying to move away from landfill and shipping our problems to other countries. I was conscious of the importance of recycling. But when I went to a meeting of the Rotary Club of Lane Cove in Sydney, Australia, I saw a presentation from Amsterdam that blew my mind away. I had no idea of the issues of plastic pollution and the surrounding effects on our daily life and our long-term health. But first of all, it's time for a break.
Children and adults from all over delight in the irresistible flavour of the biggest soup in the world, the plastic soup. prepared only with unnatural ingredients, just like we found it in the oceans. And yes, we followed the most poisonous recipe. With the strongest shopping bags, the most colourful packaging and all kinds of disposable products, and now with even more clothes microfibers. An unwholesome treat for everyone's palates. Daily eaten by turtles, whales, birds, fish, and even shellfish. Get it now in the 40-gram size. The precise amount of plastic each person dumps into the ocean every month. Give in to the latest trend. The soup to end all soups, and indeed to end everything and everyone. The plastic soup. Get it now on plasticsoup.info.
I started my journey looking into the issues of plastic soup with some very simple research. In less than 10 minutes on Google, I was shocked. As a child in the 50s, I'd grown up in London, close to the River Thames. I was fascinated by the river. I remember everywhere you looked there was tugs, strings of barges, ships, small and large, and filth. Pollution, rubbish, raw sewage. But nevertheless, I loved the Thames and I took the filth for granted. But I thought we'd cleaned up the Thames many years ago. Stories of salmons returning and a massive clean-up, so it came as a real shock to find that the Thames is one of the worst polluted rivers with microplastics in the world. The River Thames has some of the highest recorded levels of microplastic for any river in the world. Scientists have estimated that 94,000 microplastics per second flow down the river in places. The quantity exceeds that measured in other European rivers such as the Danube and the Rhine. Tiny bits of plastic have been found inside the bodies of crabs living in the Thames, and wet wipes flushed down the toilet are accumulating in large numbers in the shoreline. I started researching both plastic and microplastic pollution. At the end of this presentation, I will share a link which will allow you to download some of my research and today's presentation. In the current climate, we have added face masks and other disposable plastic which we use to protect us against COVID to the ever-increasing problem of plastic disposal. Microplastics are one of the greatest man-made disasters of all time. They are everywhere, from remote places with no human habitation for hundreds of miles to the food on our plates and the water we drink. So how dangerous are microplastics and what can we do to help reduce them? Microplastics are plastic pieces that measure less than 5 millimeters. Some microplastics have been made small intentionally. For example, industrial abrasives used in sandblasting and microbeads in facial scrubs. Others are formed by breaking away from large plastics. Natural processes, including sunlight, cause fragmentation, which turns the material brittle and makes it break. But fragmentation doesn't stop there. Microplastics can keep breaking off until they are like dust particles. Now, one of the major problems is that microplastics get into our drinking water. They get there because of agricultural runoff, sewage, sludge and agricultural plastics, debris from tire wear, footwear, even artificial turf. Wastewater, both industrial and domestic. Fibres released when washing synthetic clothes. Cosmetic beads found in so many cosmetics and sunscreens. And large plastics such as face masks, wet wipes and large items of plastic that get broken down by tidal and water flow. Filtering your drinking water with simple carbon or possibly even reverse osmosis will remove microplastics and a lot more.
Today we went plastic soup fishing to try to clean up the canals here in Amsterdam. It starts in the canals, it starts in the parks, it starts on the street. And if we clean it up, that will be the first step to create awareness.
Plastic pollution is a globally issue and it's growing.
Today we produce 1,275 kilos per person on the world, but it will not go away unless we try and clean it up, and I think we can do that. We know plastic will never go away by itself, and with lots of Rotary clubs and Rotary actors all over the Netherlands and Europe, we try to raise awareness to avoid getting too much plastic in nature.
Rotary can make a difference. Together, we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities and in ourselves. Our ambition is by 2050 that there will be no more plastic soup in the oceans and seas, no more plastic waste in our lakes, rivers, forests, parks and streets. It's a bold goal, but we can do it. Let's look at some of the facts. Plastics are produced from natural products such as cellulose, coal, natural gas and crude oil. But the big issue is they do not easily break down. We use plastics for packaging and manufacturing processes, and inevitably, just like the tobacco lobby, the plastic manufacturers do not want to cut production. Plastic is dumped into our rivers and oceans, and because they do not easily break down, we need to minimize their use, particularly single-use plastics, and dispose of them with care. Too much plastic is dumped into our rivers and oceans without thought, and too much plastic washes off our soil. Scrape beneath the surface of a beach and you're likely to find plastic. Every year, over 1 million animals are killed because of plastic. We eat 2 kilos of plastic per year. Micro and nanoplastics on your skin. Within 6 hours, they're in your blood, and in 24 hours in the organs and brain. Micro and nanoplastics. We breathe 20 kilos of dust in our living room per year, of which 6 kilos is plastic. Of the total plastic dust, 40% is from car tires, 30% is from clothes. We are only aware of a tiny part of the amount dumped by ships and flowing from our rivers, probably about 6%. The top 1,000 rivers are responsible for 80% of the world's plastic pollution. As you can see, this is mainly from South America, West Africa, North Africa, India, and much of the Far East. Now here are some very frightening statistics. Only 9% of plastic is recycled. 5 billion tons in nature. 500,000 Eiffel Towers. 45 kilograms of plastic per person per year. 1 million plastic bottles per minute. Now I don't expect you to read this chart, but it will be available in the pack, and I'm just going to give you a few seconds to look at it. There are many proactive operations around the world. Incentives such as a levy on plastic bags and single-use plastics. In the UK, the 5p charge for single-use bags has been a tremendous success, and it is thought that the reduction in use is in the region of 80%. Eco-friendly design in manufacturing and construction. Lots of green production methods are being developed. Personally, I'm just commissioning a green conservatory. Recycling. This can and does work well, but with different regulations from different councils, it's very important that people know what to recycle and how. If recycled material falls short of the requirements and is contaminated with dirty or unrecyclable material, there's a good chance that the whole container may finish up in landfill. Capture and collection of plastics from our rivers and oceans. There are many schemes being trialled and some operated. In the picture, you will see a bubble barrier, which sends up a stream of air from the riverbed. This allows water to pass, but diverts waste matter to a collecting point near the bank. Hopefully, we will see a big movement forward in river and ocean waste collection. Environmentally friendly disposal of non-recyclable materials. We know landfill is a bad idea, and many new projects are in development or in operation. Buckinghamshire County Council commissioned the Great Moor Energy Waste Facility in 2016, and now instead of our non-recycled waste finding its way into landfill, it supplies electricity to the local community. So, what can we as Rotarians do? Well, there are 3 areas: awareness, action, and alliances, and 3 levels. Clubs working with the local community. Actions can include cleanups and awareness events. District. Clubs working together. Zero waste Rotary events. And at an RI level, of course, international implementation, international alliances, funding and communication.
Dames en heren, gaan jullie aan boord?
As a Rotary Club, we are well aware of the potential strength of our network. 1.2 million people, members of Rotary worldwide. As Rotary International, we have been able to end polio now. So why not also end the plastic waste? 10 of us immediately decided to join forces and to start a common campaign to be launched this very afternoon. And this campaign is called End Plastic Soup Now.
But we're not working alone. Many organisations across the world support End Plastic Soup. In the press, there are regular stories, articles and programmes. BBC One is currently running a series, War on Plastics. And this announcement from Unilever in September was fantastic. This is the Rotary aim. We want to see at least 1,000 Rotary clubs supporting the campaign. We want to see Rotarians across the world use less plastics and absolutely minimise the use of single-use plastics. We want clubs to educate as many children as possible. We want Rotary to hold plastic-free events. We want to help find solutions across the full plastic life cycle: reduce, redesign, reuse, recycle. Now there are 2 mobile phone apps that can help you. Beat the microbead. This allows you to check for the presence of microbeads in the products you buy. And My Little Plastic Footprint. Not only does this give you a chance to review your personal use of plastics, it also has a very informative quiz to help you better understand plastics and how they affect our lives. Both of these apps are free to download. We would like you to look at the Club Action Package with the challenges to schools, sport, events and meetings, shops and restaurants, river, lake and general cleanup. And finally, join me in encouraging your club to become an ambassador club. Full details of how to become an ambassador club, the other information from this video can be found on the Rotary Club of Marlow website, www.rotaryclubmarlow.org. And thank you for your time.
Okay, much appreciated. Much appreciated, Brian. Thank you very much.
Hang on, I haven't finished. I haven't finished. Sorry. No, what I was going to say was this is, of course, Rotary focused. But in fact, Rotary is very much, as some of you have been to the Marlow Bridge Club know, working with communities. So we are sharing and working with. But what I would like to do is I would like to just share a very brief, and this one is much shorter, little presentation, which talks other things about some of the things that we can do and just a little bit more of the background behind what we're doing and where we're going. Now, so Rotary started, and we've done all this in 2019, but we have a representation right across the world. We hold regular meetings with Rotary every 6 weeks. I've actually got one tomorrow, and we're promoting
an internal action day on the 6th of June, and we're trying to promote this across the world. Now, we've got posters, promotional material in every major language, even something for the children. And the action packs, which, you know, are Rotary action packs, they're available to anyone. So if people want to have these and have this information, then please do. Now, the projects are truly international, and we're covering the world with various active projects, ranging from simple things like litter collections, right through to working with co-partners with rubbish collection boats and various other things. So it's happening in a big way. Now, particular interest, this is up in the northeast of Italy and running along that sort of European coast up there, where there's a massive cleanup program going on. And the cleanup program is very much aimed at being sustainable, because everything that we do, we try to make sure that it is sustainable and not just a flash in the pan. Another exciting project, this is something which Rotary actually working with as an additional sponsor. We have one of these boats, but we're hoping to have more boats in which are available and can be moved around throughout Europe, and actually just working to clean up various areas, various lakes, various rivers. But it's working with global grants, which is a way that we raise money. And so a lot of money is being spent on this. So our aims are awareness and education. We want to implement Rotary projects and partnerships, and those partnerships are with all sorts of members from various communities. And one of the important things, and I think this is really important, and what are we doing? We're trying to lobby, we're trying to get local awareness, but we're also trying to talk to the companies who are creating problems with plastics and looking for the reuse of plastic.
BuyBlock is a revolution in building. Not only is it made with a zero-waste process that uses 1 ton of plastic to make 1 ton of BuyBlock, but it won't crack or crumble like concrete does. It really is the future of building. They don't need glues or adhesives, making them zero waste at an even bigger level, and quick on the installation. An eco-friendly process is used to combine steam and compression, converting all types of plastic waste into the BuyBlock. Each and every block can be used to build retaining walls, sound walls, sheds, accents, and furniture. But with each one, it's also building a better future, and the environment isn't even the only area that BuyBlock tackle. This advanced, cost-effective building material could easily be used for housing, helping the poor at home and abroad. The plastic doesn't even need to be sorted or cleaned before being turned into this amazing tool. BuyBlock is rebuilding our future, 1 carrier bag, water bottle, and broken toy at a time.
Now that's just one of the various uses, because we know we have all this plastic waste. And one of the things that we're very keen on doing is encouraging people to stop disposing of it and to use it sensibly. There's interesting projects of greenhouses, green as in green, environmentally green, being built in Holland using plastics. The plastics that you saw in that little piece of film there were, sorry, let me just stop sharing. The plastics that you saw in that film there didn't even need to be cleaned. So because of the steam and the compression, that it's making it perfectly safe and sustainable. In East Africa, there's some very, very interesting work going on where they're producing dry slabs so that you can produce slabs out of recycled plastic. But there's a lot of things there, and I think one of the most important things is that what we need to do is we need to make people aware, make people realize what is happening and stop throwing that stuff on the ground, and think about how it's being recycled and what they can do to encourage others. And that is that's about the size of my presentation. So thank you.
Many thanks, Brian. Thank you very much. Those who possibly may have seen my deliberate mistake earlier on, I'm just about to correct before Ed comes on. Dave is going to give us a very short 4-slide presentation about what Marlow Energy Group is all about. And I should have also mentioned that if you want to ask questions to either Brian or Ed or both, please put them in the chat, which is the bottom middle button on your screen if you're on a PC. If we have time at the end, we will take questions from the audience, as it were, live. But in the meantime, can I share the screen so that Dave can do our little advert for Marlow Energy Group? Let me just try and get rid of that. Right, over to you, Dave.
Okay, thanks. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yep, good. So Marlow Energy Group formed just over a year ago. We had sort of 2 or 3 months before the pandemic, and the rest of the time's been online. But we work with various partners, as you saw there. Move forward, John. So what are we about? So a group of volunteers trying to focus on these objectives, which is mainly to make Marlow and the surrounding areas zero carbon, because it needs to happen. And I think, you know, it's in the press a lot now, and it's finally starting to get the recognition it needs. But what it needs is action. And it needs action from governments, it needs action from local governments, it needs actions from businesses, it needs actions from everybody. And so what we're trying to do is to help this happen by finding energy saving projects to sponsor and provide a bit of impetus to make them happen. By engaging with the community to get some more understanding of what it takes to reduce your carbon footprint, and by building some, sponsoring renewable energy projects. So mainly focusing on solar, but we're going to be looking at heat pumps, and we looked at tidal and such like. So that's about it. That's what we do. That's what we're aiming to achieve. We need volunteers to help. The more the better. We need to convert everybody eventually to effectively go to a zero carbon lifestyle. So if you're keen, or you've got some knowledge to share, want to get involved, just want to learn, get in touch, and you can join for as little as £10. And more information is available on our website, which you can see there. So slightly out of order, but hopefully we don't lose the thread and Ed can pick it up from there.
Many thanks, Dave, much appreciated. Right, let me just give a quick introduction to Ed. Ed Gemmell, founder of No Disposable Cup Day, managing director of registered charity Scientists Warning Europe, and a Hazelmere Parish Councillor. He'll be introducing us to No Disposable Cup Day and talking about the environmental disaster associated with the UK's insatiable coffee habit. So over to you, Ed.
Great, thank you very much, John. Let me just go straight to my share screen. Okay. Right, let's see. Can everybody see that?
I can see it.
Right, excellent. Hang on, get my, sorry, I can't see any of you now, so I just want to get you back on the screen. Okay. Right, sorry, start again. Okay, right, great. Anyway, thank you very much, everybody, for having me. John already made the introduction. In fact, I'm currently standing as well in the current elections to try and get elected to Buckinghamshire Council to drive a lot more action on climate change and net zero carbon emissions. And there you can see me on my Easter campaign on Easter Day and the day after with my leaflet in hand and my Easter bunny ears while I was running around in Hazelmere delivering all of my leaflets. Now, No Disposable Cup Day. I started No Disposable Cup Day in June 2019. It ran in June in 2019. It didn't run in 2020 because of lockdown, where I felt it to be too dangerous to be trying to encourage people to go in and use their reusable cups when many restaurants were suggesting that they weren't going to be taking them due to COVID. We did, though, have a very successful launch on the 4th of October in 2019. I was joined by a group of volunteers, and we created a lot of materials for it, and we set out with the aim of getting as many people in the UK and around the world not to use a disposable cup for a day. The whole idea, of course, is to try and get them to move over to reusable cups or change their habits so that they don't need to use disposable cups at all in the end. But the aim then was just for the one day. And you'll be very aware of the problem with most disposable cups is that they come as a combination of both paper and plastic in order to make them waterproof. And that means that they're very, very difficult to recycle. And the figure just before lockdown was about that less than 4% of reusable cups and managed to get recycled. Now, just going to show you this, if it will come up. This is the effect. This happened about 2 days before Disposable Cup Day, and we're absolutely sure it's because of us. And the well-informed PR manager of Boris Johnson must have known what was coming a day or two later.
Thank you. What's this? Oop, oop, oop.
No disposable cups.
So we take that as a big success of the day that we actually ran, and that got picked up by Sky News, and Sky then started promoting a lot of our online things that we were doing on Facebook and on Instagram, and we got totally inundated. That our one volunteer who was dealing with our social media rang up all of the other people who were helping and said, everybody get on now so we can start answering queries and everything else as it was taking place. In the UK now, we've now got 4 times the number of cafes we had than there were in the year 2000. I mean, branded coffee shops have exploded, the brands you can see on the screen, and they've gone up from 600 in the year 2000 to around 7,500 just pre-lockdown. Around half of the coffee we drink in the UK now is now drunk from a disposable cup. Okay, the WWF, though, has forecast that by 2030, we'll be using 1/3 more disposable cups. The WWF doesn't think that we're going to go to using reusable cups and starting to move away from disposable cups. They think we're actually going to start using more of them in the UK. Now, we use in the UK 7 million disposable cups daily. 7 million. We drop 500,000 of them onto the floor, so they don't even get into the rubbish bins and going off to the landfill. Somebody has to pick them up, or nature and the animals have to deal with it as it blows around in the countryside. Now that's 2.5 billion cups a year, a mound of cups as big as the Albert Hall. That's the amount of cups we're using every day in the UK just to get our caffeine fix. So what about the carbon emissions? Well, one disposable cup by weight is about 10 grams. To produce that cup, to get it transported and get it into the cafe, takes about 110 grams. So 110 grams of CO2 are produced for a disposable cup that only weighs 10 grams itself. Now, to compare that to plastic, in any case, when we produce plastic, the CO2 produced by weight is 6 times the weight of the plastic that is when it's emitted in the plastic production process. In addition, on the trees. So just for our coffee habit in the UK, we fell 2,500 trees every single day. So for us to get coffee on the go, we have up to 2.5 hectares, or nearly 4 football pitches full of trees, cut down somewhere around the world every day. just for us to get our takeaway coffee. Our habit is leading to a felling of nearly 1 million trees a year. And that's in an environment when we really need to be planting more and more trees and protecting every tree that's 20 or 30 years old as a mature tree, sequestering carbon on our behalf. Now in Bucks, intending to plant 543,000 trees over the next 10 years. Conveniently, that's 1 tree per person in Buckinghamshire. Now, if we're using 8,350 trees annually for our cups, and the World Wildlife Fund is right about the increase, nearly 20% of those trees were being paper cups. The UK House of Commons Environmental Audit Committee in 2017 found that only 1 in 400 cups at the time was ending up being and they said that the target should be for the government to make sure that all reusable cups are being recycled by 2023. And if that isn't possible, they said there should be an outright ban on disposable cups. Generally, though, the takeaway packaging environmental impact is huge. Now, there are some conflicting reports, but to put it into context, one report is suggesting that 2 billion units of takeaway packaging are used every year in the European Union. A conflicting study, which would suggest that a lot more than that is being used, suggests that in the UK, there are 7.5 billion food deliveries every year. That's a figure from 2019. Well, obviously, if there are 7.5 billion food deliveries, there's a lot more units of packaging, much of it plastic, that's being used at that point. Tupperware containers can lower the carbon footprint if we start using reusable containers. Instead of using a styrofoam or an extruded polystyrene container, a Tupperware container will be better for the environment after it's been used about 18 or 20 times. Even a clear plastic takeaway container would be better than styrofoam and EPS after around 3 or 4 uses. And so we really need to be using these things again and again. And in fact, one of the things we do at home is I say to the kids whenever we get a piece of plastic packaging that that's ours for life, and we need to keep using it on a continuous basis. Americans use, and I don't have the figure for the UK, around 3 billion pizza boxes a year. That's enough pizza boxes to wrap around the earth 26 times just from the Americans. And again, enough for being the same weight as 36 Eiffel Towers. Now you see in the middle a Vegware cup, and I have to know the managing director of Vegware, and they do a very good job. But the compostable cups are not the answer. They're not the answer because actually they're not truly compostable at home. You have to take them off to an industrial composting facility, taking a lot of energy and special facilities and heating and carbon emissions to compost them. But not only that, it makes them extremely difficult to collect to get there. So very, very, very small numbers of these compostable disposable cups are actually collected. Well, I did say that I was going to talk about something slightly different. So talking about plastic grass, green only in colour. And there you can see Professor Dave Goulson, somebody who is totally against plastic grass. And every single talk I've ever seen by Dave, he puts out a picture of the gardens that he hates the most, and all of them have got plastic grass in them. Now, the global market for plastic grass in 2016 was £2 billion, and that was forecast to more than double by 2023. You won't believe it, but some of the firms pitch these products as eco-friendly. You can read on their websites that actually you're going to save on carbon emissions by getting plastic grass put down because you won't be mowing your lawn so much. But we have a biodiversity crisis that is more urgent than our climate crisis. By laying down plastic, you're effectively doing a similar sort of thing as if you're putting down concrete. You're preventing the insects underneath being able to move around. You're preventing plants and flowers coming up for the pollinating insects, and you're creating all sorts of problems for our biodiversity, and without doing anything good whatsoever. Julia Bradbury, the former Country File presenter, said, "Plastic lawns are toxic to humans and wildlife. The plastic particulates they release are dangerous. They contribute to the heating of the planet, and when they're filthy with cat and bird poo, in a few years, they end up in landfill for hundreds of years. In fact, hundreds of years being 400 to 600 years. They are the opposite of nature and natural." Dave Goulson says, We find it socially unacceptable now to get single-use plastic bags at supermarkets, but Britons are covering much larger areas in plastic, which contributes to flooding, as it does not absorb water and it breaks down, releasing plastic particles into the environment. And we've got to come to play for our insects. I mean, we've had a decimation of insects in the UK and all over the world in the past decades. The Wild Wildlife Fund is saying that there are 17 species of bee in the UK, which are now regionally extinct. Why are they regionally extinct? Well, they're regionally extinct because in parts of the country, we've got those species. But when there's a problem in one part of the country, the bees can't get back to populate it again because there's too much cement, too many buildings, too much monoculture in terms of grass and farmland, and putting down plastic grass just makes it all worse. Now, I just put this in as something which I'm sure some of you have seen it as one of the most disturbing and upsetting things I have ever seen or heard about. The plastic diet, and I know that Brian went through how all of us, all animals and all humans are to some extent having a plastic diet. But you'll have heard of the film Albatross by director Chris Jordan and photographer Manuel Manqueda. They covered an environmental tragedy taking place in Midway Island in the North Pacific Ocean. In September 2009, when they first went out filming there, they were utterly shocked seeing thousands of young albatrosses dead, and when they opened them out, they saw the plastic filling up their stomachs. The quote that Chris said is, "The destructive power of our culture of mass consumption and humanity's damaged relationship with the living world became evident through what had happened to these birds." Now, albatrosses mate for life. They return to the same place, continue mating each year, and then to rear their young. And once the young are being reared, they go out on long journeys to sea, to get fish, to bring back and then regurgitate to their young so that their young can feed. In this instance, the albatross adult is regurgitating a complete stomach of plastic into the little albatross's mouth. Now, David Attenborough is reputed, when he saw this happening in real life, to have cried with absolute despair when he saw it. What can we do? Well, Brian went over a lot of practical solutions, and I've just got a few from what I'm doing, which I could share with you. Number one is just to go and shop without plastic. Easier said than done if you're going to a supermarket. But we made the decision with our family, I suppose possibly now about 3 years ago, 4 years ago, to simply shop in Tesco as much as we could without plastic. So no fruit and veg with plastic. We don't buy anything in plastic. We simply had to change our diet. It means we can't have cauliflower anymore, and quite a lot of the time we can't have lettuce. We will, though, buy it if it's in their reduced section, because having talked to many of the employees in our local supermarkets, a lot of what's going into the reduced section gets black bagged and binned at the end of the day, whatever we may be being told by head offices. And to avoid it being black bagged and binned, it's pretty much better if we get it and use it and then responsibly dispose of the packaging. On the right, you see the packaging that I use again, and again, and again, and again. And in fact, up until lockdown, when we've had to have the odd takeaway or the odd delivery come with its packaging, we hadn't used any takeaway packaging in our family for several years prior to lockdown. So these are the boxes, for instance, that we got from the local Indian restaurant, probably now 4 or 5 years ago. We go back to our Indian takeaway, we give them the boxes, marks up with Ed on it, and they give us back our curry. No waste at all, we take our own bag. We've done the same in fish and chips, at McDonald's and many other places. And now, as you'd have seen in the introduction, we're going to go on and have a little look at TikTok. I'm sure that all of you are using TikTok all the time. It's the new social media. You'll have heard about it. Everyone talks about the fact that it's only for young people, which is now absolutely rubbish. Everybody can be on it. Now I'm going to stop share. I'm going to then try and share again so I can share my screen showing you what I have been doing on TikTok, which also will give you an idea of some of the things
packaging for our bread or our pastry. And so here I am in Marks and Spencer's, getting my ring donuts hot straight away off with absolutely no packaging, and I'm even returning back the label. Come on everybody, get with it. We don't need any packaging for our bread or our pastry. And so here.
Can I just check? Could somebody just tell me if they could hear the sound on that?
Yes, I could do.
Thank you. Right, I'm going to show a couple more. So this is on TikTok. Now that first one, I haven't got it in front of me, but I got about 75,000 views of that, but I posted that on TikTok as my first post.
I'm in McDonald's and I've managed to have my fantastic breakfast with absolutely no packaging. Come on everybody, take a box with you when you go to McDonald's and don't use any packaging.
And just to tell you, that has, I think now 630,000 views. So, and the idea, of course, and there it's just an egg muffin, there's no meat in it or anything else. And we get it without packaging. We've had complete family meals at McDonald's exactly the same way. And so I can show you one other. Oh.
So we're at Morrison's now, and we're getting our cheese with absolutely no packaging. So there we go, brought our own boxes in, cheese, no packaging. It's so easy to do, and we put the labels here on the bag. So we're at Morrison's now.
Last one here.
Here is our fantastic fish and chips from Churchill's, absolutely no packaging, all in our reusable pizza box. Here is our fantastic fish and chips.
Thank you. So that's the end of that. I just wanted to show you some examples.
Super, Ed, much appreciated. We're handing over to Tony now, who's handling the questions. I don't think we've got any questions in chat at the moment.
Yeah, we have got some questions in the chat. We've had
over to you,
Jay Faulkner has asked Brian about biblock blocks versus traditional blocks. Can you give us any information on carbon dioxide for them, please? And Liz already answered it in the chat, saying there's stuff on the web, so you might be getting out of that question, Brian, if you're lucky.
Well, no, I think Liz is absolutely right, and the reference to bioblocks. Bioblocks are just one of the many possible ways that one can put this together. But if we think about it, the environmental cost of cement and its damage to the environment, both in production and the way it's used and how it goes on, not least of which is the transportation. Considerably heavier than the bioblock equivalent. So you have very much a win-win. And in terms of actual production, the bioblock fundamentally uses some electricity to drive the pressure rams and high temperature steam. So it's an environmentally much more friendly process than cement. And when in use, does again much less damage to the environment. There is probably, arguably, there's the one downside, but of course it is plastic, so you will get particles going back into the soil, so you will get some more microplastics than you would from concrete. But I think the overall benefits greatly exceed the downsides.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. I think there is a informative little kind of note from Liz in the chat, which you could all do to read, or we could all do to read, and it says that it'd be really good to inform people about the plastic problem, and that's kind of general education of everybody. And I'd quite like to have a bit about zero waste stores. We have several stores in Reading now, where I live, where we have they just give you paper bags, no plastic, and we've got plastic-free aisles in supermarkets. But they're rather nice, those shops where you can go and pick up your own vegetables, stick them in a paper bag and take them home, or even bring your own bags. I really like Ed's idea of taking your own ones. So thanks very much, guys.
In Tesco and Morrison's and that, when we've gone in buying our fruit and vegetables, we just pile the whole lot in with absolutely no plastic whatsoever, as I say, unless it's the stuff that's produced before it's black bagged. And then we lay it all out on the counter. And I'm always being offered plastic bags to put it in. I keep explaining why I'm not doing it. And then the whole thing goes along and they do it then quite successfully afterwards. But you actually have to refuse the extra packaging. And I mean, even mushrooms and things, we just put in our own bag and then stick on the counter and they all go along.
Yeah, great. Well done. I think the world needs to change like that. I've got a question about minimizing use. I really don't like the idea of minimizing use, because it's not really very meaningful, like minimize 5%, minimize 50%, minimize 95%. I'm a kind of, I'm an eliminate man, eliminate the use of single plastic. And there's lots of people that say, but I don't do but. Let's let's eliminate the use of single-use plastic. So do you want to comment on that for us, Brian? Because it's kind of aimed slightly at you with the minimise, because minimise for me is not a good word.
I agree. Fundamentally, the more we can get rid of single-use plastic, the better. I mean, one of the things which I think, was mentioned looking at the albatross. Now, we looked at the albatross, which, okay, was regurgitating large chunks of plastic. But do we know what damage the plastic particles are doing us if we're ingesting something like 2 kilos of plastic per year? So I feel that, and we don't know. We don't know what's happening with this. And so, yes, I would agree entirely. Let's try to get rid of wherever possible. And I loved Ed's idea of turning up with the local curry shop plastic containers, because they're absolutely brilliant. And I've not thought of doing that. And that's something which, and it does, and so it does. But I think in terms of the other point about minimizing, we've actually got to talk to the supermarkets. We've got to put it out on Facebook. We've got to put it out on TikTok, as Ed is doing. But we've got to actually convince people in large numbers. I mean, there's the lovely little story about the two children who went to McDonald's and said, look, we've got this petition, please, we don't want to have the plastic toys anymore. McDonald's said, well, we'll think about it. And so they said, well, we might give people options and other bits and pieces. Burger King crashed in on the act, and they said, no, we're going to do it. And so Burger King were out there sort of scoring the headlines. But then McDonald's, not wishing to be beaten, came back with exactly what they were asked for in the first place, and they got rid of the plastic toys. And it's all about pressure, and it's all about getting information out there.
Yeah, no, it's great. So I wonder if anybody else has got questions. Go on then, John. I'll let you do your one. You can wave to me. John's going first. Sorry, Kevin.
Just a very quick one, possibly for both Ed and Brian. I understand that our washing machine is a very bad thing, and that the amount of incredibly small bits of plastic that go through the washing machine and out into the water supply are quite drastic. How on earth do you get rid of that?
Brian,
I was going to say with incredible difficulty. I mean, certainly on the return way, when we're getting the plastics coming back into our drinking water, which we know they do, and we get plastics coming into things like tea bags and various other things, but also flowing into the water. So we can filter those, but filtering it to stop it from going into the oceans, I don't know of an answer. I don't think there are industrial filters that are big enough to do that. But so what we do want to try to do is to actually minimize the output. Now, one of the campaigns which I came across quite recently was that all new clothes should be industrially washed before they go on the shelf to be purchased, because new clothes have something between 12 and 40% more particles come off in the first wash than 12 to 40 times more particles come off in the first wash than they do in subsequent washes. So, and industrial washing machines, of course, can filter and can take this out. So there are ways of minimizing the amount of clothes put into the wash.
Yeah. There were laundry bags you could put your washing in to wash it that would actually filter out at least some of the plastic particles. I never thought somebody's using them. Is anybody on the call using them? No?
I think, yeah, thanks very much, guys. Let's have Kevin, your question.
Well, this is a real question for the Rotary people. What I've discovered fairly recently is that in North Buckinghamshire, where I am, there is a small mismatch between the instructions that the Buckinghamshire Council say what you should be putting into your recycle bin and what the actual recyclers who take the recyclable waste can handle, right? So there's a small mismatch, and basically what that boils down to is that people are putting quite a bit of plastic waste that could be recycled into what is called just the waste, which will be taken off to Great Moor and burned. So that is one small thing. And you say, well, okay, how specifically should we tackle this? And that is really, would it be possible for group action to enlighten people and to force the Buckinghamshire Council to align what you should do with what can be done? That's quite important.
There's a sort of a simple example of that. And the Rotary clubs of Henley, of which there were two, there were two clubs there, have for the last probably 2 years been running a campaign using exactly the same title as I am, which is Rotary Talks Rubbish. Now, they've been doing this in conjunction with the Oxfordshire Council, and very much having awareness days and sort of working with the council and working with the recyclers from the council to get this message across. I know that similar things have happened in Marlow, not organised through Rotary, but very much we have been involved with, where, you know, all of the councils have actually got their own PR department who've got a budget to actually go out and enlighten. And within the District 1090, which is the Thames Valley, we're just setting up the new ambassador group, which I'm leading at this moment. And one of the things that we're very much trying to do is work out what the clubs can do to put out projects to enlighten and educate the local population. And so we think that in a lot of cases it's the little actions which have the impact, because they get that awareness across. And so yes, it is happening, and it's something which I'm actively trying to encourage to happen all the more. But the concern is that when Buckinghamshire County Council, if you say, are getting things wrong, you know, we very much rely on the what you can recycle and how you recycle it when your rubbish is collected, etc., etc. Information that comes out from the council. And of course, if it's wrong, then I think there's only one simple answer, which is just pester them and keep on sending them emails and saying, "Oi, guys, you've got it wrong." And I think that there's an element that people don't want to. They say, "Oh, we spotted this," and so I say, "Well, okay, fine. I will tell them, but you tell them as well, because then you've got two people telling them." And you know, the more we can do that, to the point of probably of annoyance and thinking, "Oh God, not that lot again." But you know, I think it might get through because they'll do something to stop being pestered.
Yeah, thanks very much, Brian. I think I'm going to say thank you to everybody. Thank you for coming, and thanks very much to Brian and to Ed for great talks, great information, and I've loved it. Thank you. I think, not sure, you're wrapping up, John?
Tony, I just want to interject just for a minute before you close down totally. We do have these Ask the Experts generally every month, but we're having a break for a month or two. But the next one that we plan to do is demand side response. Now, that didn't mean anything to me a few weeks back, but it's trying to get the grid to do what we want the grid to do, i.e. for us to use electricity in the middle of the night when there's loads of electricity being produced, and not use it during the day, etc., to actually balance it out, especially in the future when it's estimated that we require 25% more electricity to power all the electric vehicles that are needed to replace all the diesel and petrol vehicles on the road at the moment. And just in very quick conclusion, can I emphasise what Liz said in the chat, that if you live in Marlow, the Dean Street Market, the fruit and veg market, supplies almost everything in paper bags. So they've got the message. Yeah, back to you, Tony. If you could conclude, it'd be much appreciated. Thank you, and thank you for everybody coming.
Yeah, thanks. Do you want to say the date for the next RC Experts? Have we got one for that?
It's not been
No.
sorted
Okay.
out yet, but we'll
Keep having a look at the website there. The RC Experts come up on Marlow Energy Group's website, and you can find the link. So great. Thanks very much, everybody. Very enjoyable.
Very nice to see everyone. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Okay.
Ed.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Bye.